Hi guys, this is Hillary with I'm Like Brave and the owner of Free Babes, and I'm so excited to be doing our very first Skype interview with Tania, the owner of Goat Milk. Goat Milk is a company that specializes in 100% organic clothes for babies and kids. And what I really love about Tania is that she is like a pro when it comes to branding. Everything that company does is all very specific to this unique look and feel they have going, and I love it. So, without further ado, let Tania introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Tania Vargas. I'm one of the co-owners and co-founders of Goat Milk NYC. And that's it.
Cool. So, Tania, tell us a little bit about what you did before you started Goat Milk and what influenced you to start your own business.
Well, I started in advertising, media, and then account services. So I've always been in advertising, and so has my partner. He's a creative director and photographer, and I've always been more on the account services side. So I would liaison between creative and clients. So I've done that for the past 25 years. It's a long story how we got to this, but I think it also, because this is all about entrepreneurship and stuff, but I think sort of like the best businesses are the ones that happen organically and sometimes accidentally rather than saying, this is what I want to do. And that's kind of what happened with Roland and I, my partner. We were both in the branding world and the advertising world, and we kind of came upon an opportunity to create something that was our own, which really excited us. Because we've had so much experience with working with other brands and sort of like the mistakes they make, because they're too big and there's so many layers and levels of approvals. We just really got excited about doing something from scratch and then making everything that we did like thoughtful. And so that's how we came into it. It was accidental, but it really spoke to like our skills as well. And I think it's interesting that you say branding experts, because that's where I think we do a really, really great job.
So speaking of that, when you guys started to grow, you obviously were good at branding, but how did you learn how to operate a business?
Well, I mean, we've worked for big companies, and about 10 years ago, Roland and I formed sort of like a small boutique agency. So we have been dealing with things on our own. Certainly it's different. It's a service business rather than providing a product. But I think all the tenets and ideas and philosophies are in place. And honestly, anything else you can kind of figure out. You could always find a YouTube video on anything. Figure out how to do it, whether it's accounting or just silly little things. You kind of learn as you go along.
No, that's totally what I say. I learned half my business knowledge taking bubble baths and reading Barnes and Noble books.
Yeah.
So it happens organically.
Yeah, like those dummy books are great.
Yeah. So I love that. Have you heard of the podcast Entrepreneur on Fire?
I haven't, but when you mentioned it, I did like a really quick podcast preview.
I love that show, and he always starts with a failure story, which I think is really great because a lot of people can connect with that. So can you tell me a time in your business so far where you've had what you would consider your biggest failure and kind of what you learned from it?
There's a lot of them. And I guess anybody who's been in business, it's like in order to keep going, you really have to have a stomach for it. Like you can't have a setback set you back. You just have to move forward. But we had a really, really hard time in our first production phase. We had a lot of bad merchandise that we literally had to sit and pick through for days and days to find the right pieces, get them out to our customers, and then the rest was basically, musical. So that was a huge setback from a morale point of view, from a monetary point of view. And in retrospect, I'm surprised we didn't stop after that. But I think we're just very tenacious, and you just keep on going. You figure it out. You're like, okay, this didn't work out. And there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who produce things. We can too. So you just find a way. You figure out a way. You gotta keep moving.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the most reassuring quote I hear in the business world is that perseverance is more important than talent, even, because as long as you keep going, it doesn't even matter if you're the best or the worst or in the middle, you'll succeed.
Right. Yeah.
So what is a model that you live by? Either like a quote that you love or a school of thought?
I don't know if there's anything specific, but in terms of like school of thought or motto, I would say doing your homework is really important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just understanding your numbers. I think it's really important to know a lot about what you're doing.
Totally.
And everybody always is in awe of, you know, those people who are at the top of their game or newly discovered.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is they've probably been doing it for a very long time and worked very hard at it and know it inside out. You just happen to see the payoff. You don't see the sweat, blood, and tears behind it. So I think it's really important that nobody gets to where they are without doing the hard work. And I think that's the important motto to live by, that you have to do the hard work. You have to do your homework. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Totally true. Where do you specifically find support as a business owner? Where do you find mentors or a business community?
Well, we're in children's wear, which is a whole other different type of community from like ready to wear or adult, where I think people are more willing to share and be helpful in children's wear, not so much in ready to wear.
Okay.
So we kind of tend to build our own community, whether it's at the trade shows. You know, we have sort of like a private Facebook association where we all kind of like share information and stories and recommendations. You know, and I do a lot of outreach. You know, you kind of connect now through Instagram with a lot of people, and then you find out they're either in town or they live in the same neighborhood, and a lot of things like that organically in terms of, you know, you're chatting with someone and they're doing this, and you're like, oh, let's meet and let's talk, that sort of thing.
Okay. Is that private Facebook group through the trade shows, or is that just through friends?
No, that's something I started myself.
Oh, you started it. Cool.
Yeah, and it was more like, you know, sometimes you're just, you know, when you have your brand, it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a lot of opportunities to mix with other people who are doing what you're doing because you don't live in the same town or state or country. So I created an online version of a community. And then once a year we do meetups in New York for the New York-based ones. And it's just
cool.
like, sometimes it's like, oh, I need to make business cards. Who do you like?
Yeah.
You know, everything from manufacturing to where do you get somebody who knows how to cut felt, or, you know, just simple little things like, you know, what kind of dyes do you use in your screen printing? So it's just sometimes it's nice to, and it's great because you can ask the question and people can offer to answer it. So it's less intrusive, like walking up to someone and saying, okay, where do you produce your stuff? Where do you produce your stuff? If you want to share, fine. If you don't want to, don't feel pressure.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So.
No, I really love that. I totally think there's so much value in helping each other out and not being scared of competition, but just collaborating with people.
Right.
So what is your ultimate why? Why are you in business for yourself? Why do you love being an entrepreneur?
Telling me what to do.
Yep.
No, I think it's a progression of life and career too. I couldn't do this 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've always been very autonomous. I've always been a self-starter, and I feel those are a lot of the personality traits you need to do things on your own. So that's why after a while, after 25 years in advertising, it was hard to kind of work for somebody else because at some point it's just layers and corporate stuff and political stuff, and you really don't get that much stuff done, and everything is like done by committee. So I think given the personality trait, this is a much better path for me.
Okay.
In terms of personal satisfaction. And, you know, I remember in corporate America, like, if you don't use your sick days, you lose them. So in December, you'd be using the sick days all month.
Yeah.
Since I've been doing this and on my own, I work when I'm sick. And I don't regret it or get pissed off at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there have been no sick days for me because I enjoy it. I look forward to getting up every morning.
That's cool.
That's the telltale sign of, you know, whether you're enjoying what you're doing or not.
Yeah. When the lines are blurred between work and play, I feel like that's the best place to be.
Yeah.
Totally. What would you consider your biggest strengths as a business owner?
I'm really good at multitasking, and I'm very good with people.
Okay.
You know, because I'm actually genuinely interested in people and in their stories, so I make a good listener. And I tend to get along with people very well, so that allows me to make a lot of contacts and then have opportunities that may never have arisen because I've made those contacts. So I would say that's probably my best strength. You know, I think my partner and I, we kind of think out of the box. We try to go not where everyone else is going. And certainly scary. It's not safe, and it's a risk. But I think that's also a trait that's well served us.
Okay.
As well.
What's been your biggest challenge as you've tried to grow goat milk?
Well, I mean, anyone who has a business will tell you money is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And growth is very difficult to do without an influx of a lot of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly you can grow slowly, but I think there's a lot of cash flow issues, and that's probably the biggest thing right now. It's cash.
Okay. Speaking of that, that kind of reminds me of the question I wanted to ask you specifically, which was how did you go about that very first time finding a manufacturer? Because a lot of these owners that are going to be watching the video produce their own stuff. They create it. But I've always been curious about how you go about finding a manufacturer.
Well, a lot of it could be through word. I mean, the best way to do it is to get a recommendation from somebody who's already doing it.
Okay.
But even then, it's touchy because depending on what you're producing, the fabrication, what it is, I mean, many people, like, you can go to a factory, but that factory won't do denim. Or you can go somewhere else and they won't do swimsuit, or one person won't do organic, or one person won't source the textile. So there's so many variables.
Okay.
That's why I think it's so hard. And there's a lot of associations where, like, Makers Row, that you can go online, but I just feel like none of them is really the magic bullet. I think a lot of it is really networking with people who are producing. And there are a lot of trade shows too in different countries, like South America has one because there's a lot of manufacturing in South America. You could certainly go jet set somewhere, but a lot of it is just not feasible when you're starting up. But our very first line and factory was gotten by a broker. So in other words, we hired someone in New York to facilitate for us.
Okay.
And obviously that person has a lot of contacts, and they know who does what where, but it failed anyway.
Oh, it did?
So it's a crap show,
So would you use a broker now? I mean, do you use a broker now? You just do it yourself?
No. Everything we do personally ourselves. We don't have sales reps. We don't have intermediaries. We do everything ourselves, and that's the best way to do it.
Cool. All right. So that brings me also to how many employees do you have? Like, who does what in your company structure?
Well, it's my partner and I, and then we have freelancers who just, so it's a pool of people that we call upon when we have very specific highs.
Okay.
It's sort of like highs and lows. And we just opened up a retail shop about a year and a couple of months ago. So we obviously have full-time help at the store.
Okay.
But other than that, it's pretty lean.
So it's pretty much just you guys, like subcontractors and some part-time employees. But your store looks awesome on the pictures, by the way. So how many hours a week do you work on the business?
It's hard to tell. At least 50 hours minimum.
Okay, so you're working a lot.
I'm working every minute of the day almost.
Okay. And what do you spend most of your time doing? Like, what's the breakdown?
It's so funny because a lot of people think it's designing and creating, and that's about 5%. Because there's so many. There's accounting, there's marketing, there's customer relations, there's just cleaning the toilet at the store. I mean, there's a lot to do, but I would say a lot of it is just kind of managing the day-to-day, which is accounting and customer service and site maintenance, inventory, designing, doing fit specs. I mean, it's just a host and random amount of things that you do.
I understand that. What do they say? The one quote, entrepreneurs work 80 hours a week so that one day they'll work like 4. So they work way more than other people with the hope that one day they'll be working like none at all.
It's an investment, definitely, for something that may or may not happen.
Cool. So what do you do to stay motivated? Where do you draw your inspiration?
I know. I've always been a very positive person. Half glass is always full, and really, things don't really get me down for too long. So I think I'm just a natural motivator myself. But I mean, we live in New York City, and just being in the city and just taking a walk every day is just a source of inspiration in terms of like just the structures you see, the people you see. What people are doing, it's really exciting. Whether they're writers or artists or, business people or lawyers, like everybody has like a passion for what they're doing, and it becomes a little addictive. in that
Yeah.
sense, and it just really gives you a lot of energy.
I can imagine. I've never been to New York, but that's what everyone says. No, it's my dream.
Come to New York.
Yeah. Well, I want to see the New York City Ballet. That's my thing.
Oh, okay.
So what type of lifestyle does your business afford you? Obviously, you work a lot, but what are the main perks of being an entrepreneur, like for your life and for your family?
Oh, definitely the hours. You know, even though you're working a lot of hours, they're your own. Like, so if I want to pick up my younger son at 3 o'clock and then spend the afternoon in the park, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Make dinner, hang out, but then I'm back to work from 9 to midnight.
Okay.
So it's really the luxury of the time. Or if we decide that we're going to go away for 2-3 weeks, we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that is the biggest benefit and luxury that we have.
Have you figured out ways to work remotely, like to have someone hold down the fort while you're gone?
Yeah, we do that now.
Okay.
Me and my partner, we kind of share the responsibilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the main ways that you market yourself, or that you market goat milk? And what areas have you found have been the most rewarding for the least amount of either money or effort?
Well, it's never least effort, for sure. And we've been, I am a proponent that you have to try things
Mm-hmm.
and figure it out. Because every business is different. Every customer base is different. What works for some brand may not work for our brand and vice versa. And people can tell you, oh, this is great or that's great. But I think until you actually try and test it yourself, you don't know. It's a lot of hit or misses. And I think you just got to keep try, and see what works for you. And then you start learning, you start refining. Very early, we were very conscious of the fact that brands speak for themselves. So in other words, you speak to branding. We have really beautiful imagery and look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
But unless we're backed up with the product, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Like, the product is well made. The comment I constantly get is it's so soft. Which is true. It's so soft. It's delicious. And so you have to start with the actual product and make it the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have everything else that goes with it, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can talk about my product till I'm blue in the face, but that doesn't mean anything. What really does well for us is when people talk about our product. The actual end user. So, would I love my stuff to be on a Kardashian one day and it published and she tweet about it? Yeah. But I feel like those are very temporary highs.
Mm-hmm.
Like Oprah can talk about it, all these people can talk about it, and it's very temporary highs. But I think where you invest the time and the money is really the end user, which is just the everyday person who uses it. Because they talk about it, they tell their friends, and it starts to become little ripple effects. Mm-hmm. Just like we work a lot with bloggers, anybody asks us for samples or reviews, we hand it to them because talk about low cost, it's all at cost for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't cost me anything really to send somebody. And we're not concerned if they have 100,000 followers or 500 followers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you never know where you're going to get that customer from. And to dismiss anybody because they have low viewership or whatever is not what we do. So, we spend a lot of time making sure that our product gets into the hands of people because it speaks for itself. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Really important.
That's great advice. I love that. That's something I know. She's really popular right now, but Susan was freshly picked. That's something I heard her say. They never turned down anyone that wanted to try out the product. And I just love that mentality of not being greedy or exclusive, but really believing in your product and giving it to anyone and everyone and trying to create fans that love your brand.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I'm guessing I know the answer, but what's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Okay. I figured. What do you like? I mean, how have you built your following on Instagram? What would you say is your secret there?
Again, no secret. I think if you read the book,
Uh-huh.
it's like you pay $25 for this 200-page business book, and everything you need is on 2 pages.
Yeah. No. I get it.
But I took a page from, what's that chick, Bossy Gal?
Uh-huh.
Did you read her book?
No.
Oh, okay. Bossy Gal. She's the one who did, Knack.
Oh, yeah. I'm reading it right now. Uh-huh.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yep. So when I heard about the book, I immediately bought it. I read it in one day and then sold it on eBay the next day. I took a page from her book because that's how she got started. But Yeah, I mean, there's so many books out there, but honestly, they're worth about 3 pages, and you have to read the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the question?
It was, yeah, what's your secret on Instagram? But it sounds like there's no secret. You just.
It's like you have to be active. You have to find the group of people of the type of business you're in. You have to comment on their posts. Be part be genuine. I think it has to be highly curated as well, too, because, and I think the reason we gravitate towards Instagram is because we're a very visual brand.
Yeah.
That's what we speak to. Twitter, we have accounts. Facebook, we have accounts, but it's almost because you need to have them. But Instagram, because it's about the image, speaks well to us. And I think it has to be very curated because you've got a second to look at somebody's feed and you have to decide then and there if you're interested in it. So that's why we're always conscious about the way it fits together.
I know. You are really good at that. I'm really bad at that. I'm too impatient. I take a photo late at night with bad lighting and I'm like, I can't wait to post this.
It's the act of learning too. I think you need to do it to kind of get your vibe and your feel, and then you find your way. Like, I don't think you come out it being perfect. It's a learning curve, and you figure your voice out. Because I think that's it. Because I struggled with, what's my voice? What do we sound like? What do we look like? And I think it just happens naturally, and you've got to test it. You've got to test it. Like when I repost images of our customers wearing our clothing, I get a lot more likes than maybe of my kid who's, doing something. So it's like, people don't like my kid. That's fine. Now I know.
That's really funny. I know, it's funny how you analyze all those things. Like, this one just didn't go well. What's wrong with it?
Yeah. Other time of day is posted.
Yeah.
Friday nights are dead. Never post on a Friday.
And I wanted to go back to that book since you mentioned Nasty Gal. What is your all-time favorite book? Like entrepreneurial type book?
I've read a lot. I really like the Seth Rogen series, Malcolm Gladwell. The Economic guys are great. I listen to their podcast, their NPR show, and read all their books.
Oh, cool. I haven't listened. Sweet.
Pardon me?
I haven't listened to them yet. I'm going to do that. And, okay, what would you say has been your biggest business win so far?
Our biggest business win? From what point of view do you mean?
Well, just like the biggest success you've had or the biggest single event that was super exciting for the growth of goat milk.
I don't know. I mean, I guess when people order things, it's always exciting. But we've definitely noticed that each collection gets a lot more picked up, or people get a lot more excited each collection come out with. So we see the demand, and that's not necessarily one big win. It's kind of a progression of a win. But honestly, if you were to ask me what that win is, which may not be a big one, is whenever we get feedback from our customers. And having the store is great because now we can actually talk to our customers. And it's really great to get their feedback and their compliments. And that really means a lot. It really does.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what is your ultimate vision for your business in the coming year? Like, what would you like to see happen?
Well, I would like to see us grow more from a product standpoint. Which I think we're doing with the collections that are coming up. We have 2 more coming up for the rest of the year. And I'd just like to see more growth in terms from a direct-to-consumer point of view.
Okay.
For us. Because obviously there are higher margins. Part of the reason of having a store was, we sell things to other retail stores, but our product sits alongside everything else. And it really doesn't have a personality. The great thing about the store is it's a chance to show us the personality and speak to who we are. So I'd like to see more direct-to-consumer than wholesale.
So what do you see standing in the way between where you are now and that at the end of the year?
I just think it's a lot of hard work of having people know who you are. And I think a lot of that is marketing, it's PR, it's social media. It's also a lot of just, SEO and just boring Google stuff.
Yeah. So if you could get free advice right now or like a magic elf employee to come help you, what would it be? What would they be doing for you?
cracking the whole SEO thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think, there's just a lot of stuff going online and many people vying for that one person's attention, and how do you stand up against everybody else and stand out?
Mm-hmm.
And even though, again, I've read the AdWords for Dummy and SEOs for Dummy, I just think it's such a massive undertaking. I would love to have somebody do that.
Okay. This is kind of a bigger question, and it's personal or business. If you could do anything or be anything in the world and you wouldn't fail, you had unlimited resources, what would you be doing right now?
I'll be a surgeon.
A surgeon? Really?
Yeah. I'd be like a ER, attendant or something. Yeah.
Okay. You just would like...
Just saving people's lives.
Yeah.
Every minute of the day.
No,
How rewarding is that?
That would be pretty cool. I've never heard that answer before. No, it's good. It's good. It's really selfless. Wanting to save people's lives. I love it. So if you could sit down with any entrepreneur right now for a 2-hour lunch and pick their brain, who would it be and why?
Who would it be and why? Yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know, because I don't really, and I think this goes back to one of the other questions you have. It's sort of like, we really don't spend a lot of time seeing what other people are doing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So it's not like I'm maybe wholly aware of people who are doing stuff, have built up. I mean, Nasty Gal is a perfect example. She took 0 to 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
When she was in her early 20s and under like 6-7 years, which is phenomenal. So I don't know. I think it would be. I'm really interested in very smart people from an entrepreneurial point of view, and I feel like you have to know them. Like, I don't know if the Nasty Gal person is a really smart person or she got lucky. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know if I'd want to sit with her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like not a weird question. I guess I don't know why I'm having such a hard time answering it. Because I feel like there's just so many people who are interesting, but it's maybe someone you never would have thought of because maybe they are doing something on a smaller scale, but they just have great insight. And I can't think. I'll get back to that one.
Okay, mine would be Tony Hsieh, from the CEO of Zappos. Just FYI.
Oh, okay.
He wrote a book that
Good.
did you read it? Delivering Happiness.
I read them all.
Okay, yeah, I really liked that book, and I love his perspective, and so that's who I would sit down with. But yeah, it is kind of a hard question. So what advice would you give yourself when you're just starting if you could go back in time?
I would say it's okay to start small and not be so obsessed with having, I'm being very specific, having a range of SKUs in terms of like sizes, colors. I think it's okay to start small and simple. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then you gather learning from what you're doing. So I would say it's okay to start small. Yeah. For sure, and not feel bad about it. You know what I mean? Not feel like you're a full professional company because you only have a couple of pieces. And I think things have changed a lot since we first started. I think Instagram has a lot to do with it because there's so many sort of like Instagram boutiques and shops where it's now so much easier to create something and put it out there. Even when we got started, there was Etsy, but it wasn't the full force that it is now. Yeah. So it's just so much easier for people to do that. So that would probably be my one advice to myself is you don't have to come out with like this huge collection when you're starting.
That's really good advice too, because I feel like because of Instagram, it's so hard to not compare. You see all these shops that literally just started like 6 months ago, and now they're just like exploding. And you wonder, like, why your line isn't selling out in an hour, or...
Right, yeah. And I see it. I'm on Instagram, and I see these things. I see how people, like, are going crazy, and their numbers are going up. But you know what? You never know what's going on inside a company. Let's be honest.
It's true.
Just like you don't know what's going on in a marriage, you don't know what's going on in a company. And there are a lot of things at play. So that's why feeling jealous or upset that you're not doing as well as the other guy, well, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't know that they have a huge, loan that has to be repaid, or they might lose their house. Like, there's so many things that go on behind the scenes. I think it's a waste of energy to be jealous or regret it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to focus on what you're doing and do what's best for yourself, I mean, definitely let it be a motivator for you to do well. Because, competition is good because it just makes you be better at what you're doing, for sure. But you shouldn't feel jealous about it.
Yeah.
Or upset about it,
Yeah.
And I'm always skeptical about those people who rise really quickly. I feel like the faster you rise, the faster you fall. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully.
So I think slow and steady.
Yeah. And I also totally think that, like, for me, success is great, numbers are great on Instagram, selling out very fast is great, but ultimately I want to own a business so that I can have a lifestyle that I love. And if I'm like a slave to my business because it's just skyrocketing and I can't get a free second away, like, that is not success in my mind. So I think everyone has different views too of what success really is for them.
Right.
So I just have a couple other questions. They're more just like quick questions about yourself. But tell me about your morning ritual. Like, do you have one? And what do you do every morning?
Go to the gym
Uh-huh.
to do my power workout. It takes about an hour.
Okay.
And so I come home, I shower, I clean, get the kids take them to school, and then I indulge by sitting in the same cafe every day and having my coffee
Uh-huh.
before I start the day. And that's basically how my morning starts. But even then, it's like as soon as I get up, I'm checking emails and replying to emails.
Yeah.
But I do give myself the gym to kind of get my yayas out and get my energy up more than anything else.
Okay.
Because you need that energy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite success quote or a favorite quote?
I think the whole part about doing your homework, just the blood, sweat, and tears is a huge, huge part of it that many people tend to forget about.
Okay.
Or overlook.
Yeah.
And just kind of doing your homework, really.
Yeah, well, that's great. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, last night I went out for karaoke for the first time. That was a lot of fun.
That doesn't sound fun for me.
It was my first time. It was the best time.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of addicted to Netflix and BBC and theater. But really, browsing bookstores, just, my time, because I have 2 children and work, is very limiting. So sometimes just doing nothing is the huge luxury. It really is.
Okay. Yeah. And what is your process for goal setting? Do you do anything like inspiration boards or anything to keep your goals in the forefront?
We try to set certain goals for ourselves each year, just because you kind of have to have some milestones. You constantly have to be thinking about what you're doing and how you're growing. And we do a couple of times a year an off-site where we just go somewhere for 2 days. So
cool.
There's no interruptions. And we just kind of just sit around and talk about what our experience was, what are we liking, what are we not liking, what can we do that's a little bit different. And it's just very casual. We look at numbers, we kind of see what worked, what didn't work. So, it's almost like a postmortem that we do a couple of times a year. And I have to say, those have been really inspirational. Because it's a time where you just talk about your biggest idea, no matter how crazy it is. And then things just kind of morph from there. And then you get to a place you never would have thought you had gotten to because you did that. So I think those are really great inspirational moments. And in fact, I think the best products we've ever developed have come from those meetings.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have is, what is the funniest thing your kid has ever said?
Oh, that one, my 8-year-old once asked me, Mommy, do I have to pay somebody to work?
For himself?
You.
Oh, okay.
Pay you. When you go to a job, you have to pay them. Like, no. They pay you.
He can come work for me if he wants to. That's awesome. Do you have anything else to say or add that you think would benefit all of the like entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs that are watching this?
Yeah, I mean, all right. You know what? Life is too short to, because I'm a little older probably than you. In life you regret the things you didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really regret most of the things you do. I think it's not taking that opportunity you should have, or trying something because it's very scary to go out on your own. It's a monetary thing, it's time, it's energy, and it can be very, very scary, but I think sometimes you just have to go for it. And I believe a lot in your gut instinct, it's kind of like listening to your inner voice. And I would say just go for it, but be smart about it. Like there's a lot of ideas that aren't good ideas that you shouldn't do. If you can test something, that'd be great. But I think it's always important to kind of do something that might scare you a little bit and just go for it. Just be very open and thoughtful and just, learn something as much as you can, as fast as you can. What else? And, surround yourself with really good, smart people. It's sort of like, if a turkey wants to fly, he has to surround himself with birds and not turkeys. It's sort of like you are the sum of like the 5 people you surround yourself.
That's what I was thinking.
And I'm a huge believer in that because I think the people around you either build you up or they bring you down, and it's important to have positive people and smart people because you just don't want people saying, "Oh, that's a great idea, you should go for it." You need people who say, "You know what? Maybe now's not the right time, or maybe this idea isn't the best one." So you kind of have to surround yourself with honest, smart people as well. And then I would say just also get yourself out there. It's like Tina Fey in her book Bossy Pants. She had to learn to say yes. And it's an interesting concept because it's late at night and you're supposed to go to a place and you're like, oh, I don't feel like going. I'm already cozy inside, and then you force yourself to go out. And then you go out, and then guess what? You met somebody who either inspired an idea or created a connection or gave you some information that really sparked something, and that never would have happened if you didn't say yes and just put yourself out there. Yeah. So I think it's really important to put yourself out there and get out there as much as you can.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Basically everything you said has been stuff that has been on my mind lately from other people saying that. So that is, especially the part about saying yes. And you never know what opportunities will come when you just put yourself out there.
Right, and you don't ask, you don't get. For sure.
Cool.
And you shouldn't feel embarrassed about it or that. And women also have, we don't really advocate for ourselves. We're more the nurturer, and obviously our pay is below men, and stuff like that. So I think we don't have a tendency to like go for it, ask for it, and we really need to learn how to change that behavior to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, this was really great. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to go ahead and pause.